We're talking hoops again because NBA draft is already tomorrow, day one of the draft. We know the Hornets had a pretty good success rate last year with their class, bringing in rookies like Con Knippel, who was in the running for Rookie of the Year, as well as three others who were all big contributors this past year. So before we get to the draft, going to bring in our good friend Jeremy Grandison. He's on the Hornets beat. We see him all the time. Friend of the show as well too. Jeremy, just before we go into the weeds of maybe what the Hornets are looking at or things like that, just this draft class as a whole, what are you kind of making of this group of players that are looking to hear their name called by NBA teams?
Hey, first of all, Danielle, thanks for having me on. We've been friends for a couple years now since you came to Charlotte, so I appreciate you having me. But to answer your question, this rookie class, it kind of reminds me of people who can just give instant impact. I saw what Dylan Harper did in the NBA Finals last year, and I think there's a lot of guys in this year's draft or this season, a lot of guys in this year's draft who can have immediate impact on teams that can have championship aspirations or playoff aspirations. I think of when you get outside of the top four, you still have guys like Yaxo Lenderborg and Adai Mata and all these guys who, may be a little older than their rookie counterparts or their 18, 19-year-old counterparts, but these guys can come into the league onto a team and immediately impact winning. So I think if you're a team in between 5 through 15, it's still a lot of good players and pieces to possibly use and bring onto your team.
We saw this past draft, obviously, getting two players who were not just those one and dones with Ryan Cockburn, Sion James. Both of them had college experience under their belt already. And that definitely showed up, I think, for both of them when they translated to their NBA games. Right now, as things stand, the Hornets are on the clock at picks number 14 and 18. This is a little bit higher up the draft compared to previous years. Of course, Con Knippel being number 4 last year, but that's, of course, a factor of having pretty good success this past year that they go a little bit further down the line in the draft. At this point, Jeremy, do you think they're going to pick at those two? Do you think there could be moves in the future of the next 24 hours where they could be either moving up or moving back in any kind of way?
This is so tough to kind of, I guess, predict because I think there's a lot of dominoes that are waiting to fall before we get a clear answer on what they want to do. I think the Coby White contract situation is a big kind of domino that's waiting to fall that might influence what they do at 14 or 18. If you can get Coby White locked down, then maybe do you say, okay, we don't have to move up in the draft and get another talented player, but maybe you do that if you know you can't get Kobe onto the contract you want. In terms of what I would do, and of course, I'm not a GM, I don't get paid the big bucks to make these decisions, but I think you have a lot of good guys at 14 and 18. Again, like this draft is really deep. A lot of drafts we see in the past are top heavy, right? Where it goes one, two, three, four, five, and then it falls off a cliff. And I think this year it goes one, two, three, four, gap, and then you have 5 through 11, a little bit of a gap, and then you have another slew of great players from 12 to 20. So if I'm Jeff, I think there are a ton of players that you can get who can immediately impact this team at 14 and 18. And like you said in the beginning, Sion and Ryan Kalkbrenner, end of the first, second round draft picks, and they are both giving great contributions to the Hornets last season. So I don't want Hornets fans to see this and think we have to get up to 7, we have to get up to 9, we have to get up to 10. You can still find great guys at 14 and 18.
That also speaks to the level of confidence that they have on their current roster. It's not like they have, immense needs. Of course, there are some, and we could talk more specifically about the bigs, for example. But going back to Kobe, because I think that is a really pivotal piece. The last time we spoke to Jeff Peterson, it seemed as if it was almost like a done deal in their minds that it was going to be happening, that they established they really want him. Kobe has established that he really liked being back home in North Carolina. He really liked Charlotte. Where is it at right now that all of a sudden it seems like there's a lot of teams from across the NBA who are at least expressing their interest in? And do you feel like suddenly this is a little bit off the rails from what we were kind of expecting around exit interviews with Kobe?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, we're both at those exit interviews, and share the same sentiment, which was, okay, these both parties want to get, this deal signed. They want to make sure that Kobe stays a Charlotte Hornet for the foreseeable future. But then you get reminded every day that the NBA is a business first. And
Right.
of course, Kobe's side wants to find the number that fits him, that suits him, that he's happy with. And the Hornets also want to, of course, lock down Kobe, but at a deal that gives them flexibility to still make moves around the fringes of their roster going forward. Now, to answer your question on like Kobe's, I guess, his market right now, I think the playoffs showed us you can never have enough ball handlers, right? Where you've seen the Minnesota Timberwolves and you lose Dante DiVincenzo, and now you have Terrence Shannon Jr. having to step up. And it'd be great to have a Coby White type of player to plug into those scenarios, right? You could do that exact drill with the Magic or the Atlanta Hawks or name any playoff team. They could all use a Coby White on their roster. And I think that if you're Coby White's agent, you're saying to Kobe, hey, I know you want to be a Hornet, but look at how valuable your skill set is around the league. Don't just give your team the hometown discount. Let's see what there is out there. Then of course we can come back to see what happens. But I hope it works out for the Hornets and Coby White because we've been seeing the Hornets take small steps towards being a winning and respectable franchise in the past years. And I think losing Coby White would be a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, of course, what he was able to do against Miami in that game in the postseason, I think probably put a lot of alarm bells off for a lot of teams. Not like Kobe was this underrated player by any means from his time in Chicago, but having like that veteran presence who could just kind of deliver in the big moment, I think definitely makes him real marketable as well.
Yeah, and I think something with Kobe too is Kobe is like the best insurance policy in the league, right? When you have a guy like LaMelo Ball, who I asked Nick this question when I was on the show last time, LaMelo Ball playing 70 games in a season is an outlier. That's not the norm, right? The trends and everything that's happened over his career would say, I hope it doesn't happen, that he will get injured again, usually with the ankle. So if you have someone who is a threat to be injured constantly, Coby White is another, like it adds more value to what he brings to you. And I think that the Hornets shouldn't just value him as a backup sixth man. You have to kind of go into those contract negotiations with the mindset of he is also could be our starting point guard for 30 games if something goes awry
Right.
with LaMelo Ball.
So, looking at now this upcoming draft, in terms of the Hornets and what their needs could be, looking at the bigs right now, Musa Diabate, of course, took a big step forward this past year. He got the Hustle Award, clearly showing that he's a very valuable asset. He is undersized. We do know he's been putting on some muscle this offseason. Last year in the draft, they went out and did get a big in Ryan Cockburner as well. He also proved a lot of times that he could be a reliable big. Is that an area where you could see the Hornets targeting in an upcoming draft slot where they're on the clock?
Absolutely. I did say early on that there's a lot of great picks from 14 and 18, but there isn't a certain pick in that area that might fill every single need you have for what you need for the Hornets. So if you're the Hornets and you need a downhill attacker in the guard position who can also shoot, you might only have one of those skill sets at 14 and 18, not both. Or if you're the Hornets and you need a big front court guy that can be versatile, you might only have one of those options, not the others. So to answer your question, Musa Diabate, it looks like he took a super soldier serum in the summer because he's working out and we're seeing like the muscles and the gains and it looks great for Musa. But I've said this before, it's you're either a physical player or you're not. And Musa, of course, has the physicality mindset, but I don't think he has the weight, no matter how much he lifts, to be able to go up against the Jalen Durans and the Isaiah Stewarts and all those kind of big guys in the Eastern Conference. So I would go and target a forward or a big man, maybe Morris Johnson out of
Yeah.
Michigan. I don't know if Adai will be there. I doubt he'll be there at 14 or even Yaxel, where guys can kind of fit into that forward spot because with Miles Bridges and Grant Williams, I think you need another guy who's a inherently physical player or getting a center at that position too. So it's going to be really interesting, but I think that they should prioritize the forward or center position rather than maybe the backcourt positions.
You just mentioned two Michigan men names right there. Morris Johnson's a name that's been definitely in the circulation of a name that the Hornets could be targeting. Yaxel as well. I did just see there was a mock draft that had Yaxel still available at 14 and the Hornets not picking them. What do you think about maybe this past Michigan team. We just saw Dusty May just got signed to be the new head coach of the Dallas Mavericks as well. It's a program that historically has put players into the NBA at a pretty good success rate. Musa Diabate, one of those examples, coming from the blue as well too. So those two players in particular, what do you know about them, and where do you see them potentially being able to fit as Hornets players?
Yeah, I saw a mutual friend, Matt Alkisa, tweet out. Just saw a mock draft that Yaxel, wasn't taken by the Hornets, even though he was available, and that kind of surprised me because I think that would be a great option, a great pick for the Hornets. In terms of Michigan players and kind of where they stand, I think the Dusty May hiring is the proof in the pudding where the Michigan guys are gonna be successful in the NBA. Dusty May went from FAU, went to Michigan, and now he's in the NBA because it's clear that the skill sets he's teaching and the game plan and the schemes that he's showing are made to translate from, low D1 to high D1 to the NBA across all competition levels of basketball. So I think getting a Michigan guy would be great. We saw that the Duke guys were on Jeff Peterson's radar last year with Con Knipple and Sion James. They always speak glowingly. We were at a lot of shoot-arounds, in the morning this season. They just had so many glowing things to say about these Duke players. And I think the same goes with these Michigan players because Morris Johnson, that guy gives you the motor that we always hear Charles Lee wanting to talk about. Then you have a Daimata who gives you the versatility and the passing out of those short roll situations that Charles Lee loves to have his big players in, his big men in, and then Yaxel to end it off. Who cares if he's 23, 20? I don't care. If you're trying to be a Hornets team, they're trying to make the playoffs in the next coming seasons and have success in the playoffs. I think Yaxel will be a big piece if you want to have those goals and aspirations.
Absolutely. Thinking about the team as it stands right now, there's a lot that's going to be potentially shifting with trades across the league. Is there a player that comes to mind on this Hornets team that you think maybe is the most quote unquote vulnerable to be part of a trade that you think the Hornets might say, you know what, like we can maybe move past this player and use them to gain something different. I know there's been a lot of conversations around Miles Bridges as kind of a trade option for potential trades, whether it be getting a big like Sabonis or getting another player in the mix. Jaylen Brown, we're starting to hear that name, if that's an interest of the Hornets as well. Who on this current Charlotte team do you think, could be potentially shopped, if you will?
In order to get a big fish, you got to give up one of your own. So when you have these Jaylen Brown conversations, it's going to come at the expense of Brandon Miller. When you're having, like the Giannis conversations, you can't just do that and be like, yeah, we're going to keep Brandon, Con, LaMelo the whole course. So someone's got to go. And of course, it's not going to be LaMelo. It's not going to be Con Knipple. And it pains me to say this because I think Brandon Miller is a true staple of this team. He has the mindset of someone who wants to win. We are in those press conferences when we asked Brandon, like, hey, after that Pistons, skirmish, whatever happened there, he's like, I love it, man. Like that guy lives for moments, high stakes moments. We saw him be one of the only players in that Magic game to kind of show up and show out in that game. But if there is a guy that you are trying to give away to become a big fish, a big player in the East, you can't get it done without, having a Brandon Miller type of guy in there. Now, would I do that? No, but I would say that it wasn't the best news to hear that the injury happened to the shoulder and that he'll be out for the whole, summer because he's told us many times before, I just want an off season to work on my game. I want an off season to work on the needs that the coaching staff has told me I need to work on during the exit interviews. And if he can't get these times to do it, then it gets me a little nervous thinking about, well, year 4, year 5, year 6, what's going to happen if you can't get those times in the off season to work on your game.
When we last spoke to Jeff Peterson, I remember asking him a little bit about looking back at the draft class prior, led by, of course, Con Knipple, and asking him, does that kind of set the model for how you want to approach drafts of the future in terms of clearly seeing how it had panned out successfully? And he gave a pretty good answer. What are your thoughts on just how the front office is kind of now, as they're new, they're still just only a couple years here in Charlotte, but how they're handling these drafts at this point?
I think I want to shout out Matt Alkiza again because, we're at the games together and he's just dropping knowledge on me the whole time. I feel like I'm a sponge as this guy is, just giving me all his basketball wisdom, but he told me something about the Hornets that I really agree with. Like they're not making any sexy picks, Danielle. They're just doing the right things over and over and over again. Jeff Peterson during the season and even last offseason, we hear these reports from Shams saying Jeff Peterson, got this contract off the books and got back 3 second-round picks. And you're just like, that's not sexy at all. Like why if you're a Hornets fan, you see that, you're like, oh, a trade. Oh wait, we got 3 second-round picks. What does that mean? But those second round picks turn into a Sion James, and those second round picks turn into the guys that we saw who were ultra productive for the Hornets. So I like how they're not making those big splashes yet. They want to see what they have before they even make that decision. And I've asked Jeff plenty of times, whether it's exit interviews or mid-season interviews or at the trade deadline, and he tells me the same thing over and over again, which is we will know when to push the chips into the middle of the table, and that time is not now. Now, in terms of the Hornets and what they're doing as a front office standpoint, they are looking for players who, of course, are good, but have the right mindset to not waver when things get tough. The Hornets had a really tough start to the season, and Khan and Sion and Kalk were consistent the entire way through, partially because the Hornets drafted guys with the necessary mindset, the requisite mindset to never fail or never waver in those situations.
Absolutely. So when you say these sexy picks, if you will, this is a team that is failed to make the playoffs. Of course, they were in the play-in, but they want to take that next step. Does making a move that is quote unquote sexy get them to that next point in your mind, or do you think playing it safe and just continuing to chip away in the way that they've been doing drafts, I guess, of the past, is that more effective?
So I think the Hornets are hoping that by making the right move over and over again, one of these players, we're saying this word so often, will become the sexy player where you don't have to trade for it, right? Where Con Knipple, people will debate over who should have won Rookie of the Year. That guy had an incredible season, and if he can build on that, he's already a top six, top five shooter in the league on your team as a second year player. If Brandon Miller can go from a guy who's a fringe all-star to someone who's a legitimate all-star, you don't have to go out and trade for someone if the guys that you brought in can do that for you. Same thing with LaMelo Ball. So if if I'm Jeff Peterson, I'm saying I think we have the pieces to not have to go out and make those moves because our core can absolutely be a core that can go and get you to the second round Eastern Conference Finals if they keep on, growing in the same trajectory that they're going right now. But if this season, which is why I'm so excited for this season coming up, shows you, hey, maybe we don't have that guy on our team, then it might be time to go and draft that sexy player. And the thing about it is, if you go and get that player, the problem with it is your window is kind of closed. Right now, your window is slowly opening. But when you get that guy, now you're on a timeline. If you go and get Jaylen Brown, hey, you're on a 3 year timeline. This is going to be the best years of Jaylen Brown's career. You have to maximize those things. Right now, it's kind of we're playing with house money. Let's see where it goes.
Do you feel like Charlotte's become more of an appealing destination for these types of players based on what they were able to do this past season, just based on what the league is seeing, how Charles Lee has been handling being a head coach for the first few years in his young career, and just seeing the way that, the fans even show up? Is Charlotte becoming more of a basketball destination for players?
Absolutely. I think if you're a player and you're trying to join the Hornets, just the way they play, we're in those arenas last year, and you're just like, man, the ball is pinging around. And you see LaMelo Ball get to the paint, get a paint touch, flares it back, or skips it out to Brandon Miller, who gives it to Con Knipple, who pump fakes for a three and drives and then kicks it back out again. And your head is just like on a swivel. And we both know who Bill Simmons is. He's a big Boston guy, but like Bill Simmons has something called the League Pass rankings, and he kind of ranks teams who aren't on national TV a lot and how enjoyable they are to watch. And the Hornets had to be in your top five of League Pass rankings last season. And I think that translates to players as well, where they say, I can envision myself in this offense with Charles Lee. I can envision myself playing for a coach like Charles Lee, who of course is, a happy-go-lucky guy, but when he needs to be serious, we've seen him be serious. And I think all those things along with the front office and the organization and everything around the Hornets HSC kind of working in tandem would be a great place for a player. Now, we heard Taj Gibson say, hey, this is a gold mine, people are sleeping on it, and a year later it's coming out to be true.
Absolutely. Looking at the draft, there is obviously one team that gets a number one overall pick, but there's a handful of guys that could be selected. I feel like every day it changes. Do you have a prediction who's going first?
Man, this is so tough because every time I see AJ DeBansa and Darren Peterson, match up, Darren Peterson gets the best of them. But I'm just constantly going back and thinking of what you need in the NBA is that 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" wing. We see the Jason Tatums, the Pascal Siakams, the Kevin Durant, the LeBron. Those guys are usually leading you to NBA championships, not usually the shooting guards like Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards and stuff like that. So archetype wise, AJ DeBansa is the better player for the Wizards. But in terms of who's just a better player overall, skill wise, putting the ball in the basket, I think it's Darren Peterson. But then, of course, you have the safest, steadiest guy in Cameron Boozer, who I think he has the highest floor out of all of these guys. I don't see a world where Cameron Boozer isn't averaging a double-double by year three. And it's going to be really hard to be the Wizards, where, in my opinion, I think being the number two pick is the best spot because there's no wrong answer at being number two. If you're number two, okay, you took AJ DeBansa, we'll take Darren Peterson. No worries. If you're number two, you take DP, we'll take AJ. It's a great spot to be in. And I wish the Hornets were in that spot this year. It'd be a lot, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now, but it's going to be really interesting. And I can't wait to kind of see you and what the Hornets do and the NBA as a whole tomorrow on Tuesday.
Yeah, we've seen in the last couple drafts, it feels like the number one was already a lock before the year even began with Cooper Flag. A
Yeah.
couple years we saw Wemby, things that felt like, okay, the draft starts at number two. Of course, the Hornets benefited in the Wemby year getting that number two for Brandon Miller because they got basically the best of the rest outside of him. It will be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing you. We will, of course, have all of our coverage on WCNC Charlotte. We'll be live at Hornets HQ. I'm sure we will be chatting at some point on our streaming show on WCNC Charlotte app as well too. So, Jeremy, thank you so much, and looking forward to another fun NBA draft night.